What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome into a fresh new hour of CBS Sports HQ. Haley Sutton, Jacqueline D'Agostino with you. Your favorite duo to talk about our teams that are not in the Super Bowl.
On the ones and twos, baby.
Of course.
Jags, Cowboys, pour it out.
Cowboys, we're pouring it out for them. Thankfully, we get to talk about the Cowboys in a little bit. We'll tell you if it's
a
good
deep
or
tease
bad in
there.
a minute. But of course, we are focused on the Super Bowl coming up in just 9 days, Jacqueline. The 9th Super Bowl rematch in NFL history. That 9's going to be a common factor for us.
Totally.
We'll see if it's the Chiefs or the Eagles in this Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, and really the winner of the first game in these rematches, right there, 6-2 in the second meeting. So I don't know, like history seems to be on the Chiefs side. A lot of things are on their side as they're trying to do something that has never been done in the history of the NFL, and that is to three-peat, right? So a three-peat loading, I don't know, maybe a Jalen Hurts revenge game. We'll see. Getting a look at the odds to win Super Bowl MVP, and it's interesting, right? Because Patrick Mahomes, he already has a couple of those awards sitting on his shelf at home, but he is the favorite at plus 110. Saquon, though, at the running back position, right behind him at plus 280, and then we have Jalen Hurts. So it's quarterback, a running back sandwiched in between the two quarterbacks there, and still it feels like kind of a steal that the Eagles were able to get a Saquon Barkley-like player.
I want to talk about it, Jack.
Yeah, it's kind of, NFC East like beef over here as a Cowboys fan. Let's bring in Emory Hunt and Tyler Sullivan to talk about this, and we're starting, of course, with Saquon. And he has been in that MVP conversation, guys, for quite some time. And it's kind of like all things are coming to a head, right? Because Saquon, he's having a career-like season. Yeah. It's incredible. And he's going up against this Chiefs defense that doesn't allow 100-yard rushers. And we've seen that this season. Emory, I will start with you. Win or not, is Saquon having the best season in NFL history by a single player? It doesn't matter if he wins or not to then determine that.
You know what's interesting, Jacqueline? It's a great question because it's like when I first thought about this, it was, well, this could be kind of prisoner of the moment. But if we go back in history, when Eric Dickerson ran for his 2105, they ended up losing in the wild card round to the Giants. O.J. Simpson's 2,000-yard season in 73, they didn't even make the postseason. And when Barry Sanders did his in 97, they lost in the wild card round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if Saquon Barkley can win the Super Bowl, then yes, it would be the best season we've seen collectively because it directly ties to the team needing him to rush for 2,000 yards to win games and for him to have another big game in the Super Bowl when it counts the most, because we hadn't seen a 2,000-yard rusher in the Super Bowl. The last time we saw a 2,000-yard rusher in a championship game, it was Herschel Walker with the New Jersey Generals in a USFL in '85. So that's something that we hadn't seen ever. And now we're going to see it here with Saquon. So if he does win it and they're able to he's able to lead them to victory, then yes, it would be the best season we've seen this in NFL history.
You know what? I don't even care if I'm a prisoner of the moment. Lock me up right now if that's the case, because I do think that this is an unbelievable season that we're seeing from Saquon Barkley. Let's zoom out for a second. Like, at the start of the year, we all remember the Hard Knocks video of the New York Giants talking about letting Saquon Barkley go. We got an intimate view of how all of that went down. Now you fast forward throughout the season, which was a 2,000-yard rushing season for Saquon Barkley, and we just showed those odds. There's a scenario here where this ends up with Saquon Barkley with a Lombardi trophy as the Super Bowl MVP. He's the second best odds of the bunch. That is absolutely insane. It's not just one of the best seasons of all time. It's the best spite revenge tour, whatever you want to call it, in NFL history because of the New York Giants in the division, going to the Philadelphia Eagles, having the level of success that he's had so far. And if he does go over 100 yards, like you guys were mentioning, that's never happened for the Kansas City Chiefs under Steve Spagnuolo in the playoffs. So as much as we say, okay, Saquon Barkley going over 100 yards rushing, that's just another day at the office, that would be a historic footnote in itself.
Tyler, really quick here, when you look at Saquon and what he's done with the Eagles, if he was not with Philadelphia this year, do you think we would have seen a similar season from him?
You probably would get a little bit more motivation, right, wherever he was going to end up. And he wasn't going to pick a spot where it was, same old with the New York Giants, where he wasn't going to be competitive. He is a winner. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to find success in the NFL. So, would it be a 2,000-yard season on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl? Probably not, because Philadelphia has an unbelievable offensive line, great quarterback, great receivers to help him out. But you would still get a sensational season from Saquon Barkley. There's no question about that.
Yeah, either way, I say this every time we talk about this. I'm never going to forgive Joe Shane, John Mara, any of those guys for letting Saquon go to the Eagles, because it's ridiculous. He's now 30 yards shy of passing Terrell Davis, as we talked about. And guys, we're not that far removed from, remember a few seasons ago when the running backs were putting together that coalition to make running backs more important to the NFL. And here we are now, we're talking about Saquon Barkley changing the course of what running backs look like in the NFL. I mean, Emory, when you think about some of the upcoming free agents, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, even Derrick Henry in 2026, has the season that Saquon Barkley has had this season, has there been a shift in mentality when it comes to the importance of running backs to your offense?
It just shows you how my lobbying efforts here on the Columbia Broadcast Station has worked, because now everyone understands how important the position is. But in terms of rechanging the market or anything like that, I don't think so, because it's still separate. We're talking about running backs, or are we talking about game breakers? When you talk about Saquon Barkley, he's in that category of a game breaker, just like a Jahmyr Gibbs. And if you have that ability to rip off a run from anywhere on the field, makes the job easier for your offense, makes the job easier for the quarterback, and makes it like hell to pay for a defense, because you got to be alignment sound, assignment sound, gap discipline, and not every running back has that cachet. So yes, if you are an explosive back or a guy that's a game breaker, you can command what you want in the open market. But if you're just a run-of-the-mill running back, you're in a different class as opposed to the class of those guys I just mentioned.
Not run-of-the-mill, Emory. Sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
And I'll just piggyback off that, because you have Saquon Barkley, and let's throw Derrick Henry in the conversation as well. They're one-of-one guys, right? They are just so special at what they do. It's hard to say that anything Saquon does with Philadelphia or Derrick Henry did with Baltimore this season, that's going to impact like Najee Harris in the open market. It's just, I think it's apples and oranges when we're talking about reshaping the market. Those guys are special in their own right, and that's why that they're getting the credit that they're getting.
Yeah, and to your point, Haley, though, only a couple of seasons ago, it was like Christian McCaffrey and then almost everybody else. And now we're seeing, Derrick Henry revitalizing his career there in Baltimore. And then Saquon, of course, he looks like he's from another planet. Let's talk about the quarterback, though. Saquon's quarterback, that is, and Jalen Hurts, because there is a narrative out there from some people that he, just doesn't come up in the big moments. And still, he is part of a very small group of quarterbacks that have been to multiple Super Bowls, and he's not even 30. He's, under the age of 27. So, Emory, I'll start with you, but how much does his legacy depend on this game? If we see an instance where he gets close once again and doesn't win a Super Bowl, how different will the narrative be about his legacy? I guess it's hard to talk about legacy when you're 27, or but still, we have to do it, right? So how much does it depend on this game, in your opinion?
It won't, to be honest, because people will have that narrative about him regardless. It's because of the pre-draft biases that people had about Jalen Hurts and thought he couldn't play quarterback. I had him as my number 2 quarterback right behind Joe Burrow in that draft class. I caught a lot of flack for it, but now I'm looking at it from 5 years later like, hey, I was dead on with that evaluation. The reason why him, Burrow, Jalen Daniels, all of these quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, they have the one attribute that you can't coach, and that's toughness. Being able to lock in when the game matters the most. And you see someone like Jalen Hurts time and time again show up in these big clutch moments, and just so happens that it doesn't work out for him. But it's not because of Jalen Hurts' inability to make the play. It's because of things, those guys on the other side of the ball get paid too. So Jalen Hurts is going to play a great game like he did in the Super Bowl last time they played Kansas City, but it won't matter because people will still talk about him because they can't let go of that pre-draft bias. And if you look at that year, Burrow won the Heisman. Look who finished second. Had a crazy year. It was Jalen Hurts. He had 50 touchdowns that year, but Joe Burrow has 70. So at the end of the day, it's always going to be there for Hurts. He just wants to get one done and get one for his team.
Yeah, I partially agree with that. I mean, you know, if there's pre-existing biases with Hurts, then it's going to be hard to shake a lot of those people off. But I will say, you put a Lombardi trophy on that resume, it shuts a lot of people up. That's just what it does. I mean, let's look at, you know, for instance, Eli Manning is probably going to become a Hall of Famer in the next coming days here when we get the formal announcement. The quarterback, he's a 500 quarterback in the regular season, 117 and 117. The reason why he possibly gets in is because he has those two Lombardi trophies, elevating when the situation called for it on the brightest stage, and he has 2 rings to his credit. So when we talk about Jalen Hurts and his resume and how he fits in the pantheon of all of these quarterbacks, again, he can silence a lot of those critics with a Lombardi trophy. It's one of the reasons why we're critical of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Tremendous success in the regular season, but haven't been able to get it done in the postseason. A lot of these quarterbacks are like that. The truly special ones get over the hump. And again, if Jalen Hurts is able to pull this one off against a historic Chiefs team, that's quite the feather in his cap.
Y'all act like we don't know what they say about Russell Wilson. He got 1 and been to 2 Super Bowls, so it won't matter if he wins one. They will still knock him for it.
Yeah, Pete Prisco, I had been on this desk many a times talking about Russell Wilson and his moonball, and it's not in a good way, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's hard too when we're talking about, you know, superlatives and legacy, because there's just so many factors, and then you put the human experience in there, and his legacy looks one way to another and another to a different person. Unfortunately, we do know that the legacy of Patrick Mahomes is that he is on track to be one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game, gentlemen. And we even joke about it, right? Last year was the year to beat them if you were going to beat them. We carried that conversation into this year. It just seems like at every turn, Tyler, this Kansas City Chiefs team, whether it's the rabbit in their pocket or the good luck charm, whatever it is, they find 9 lives. Ways to win. So it feels silly asking you this question, but do you think the luck runs out in the Super Bowl? Because no evidence has told me that the Chiefs won't win this game.
It's true, right? They're the NFL's Thanos. Dread it, run from it. The Kansas City Chiefs arrive just the same. It just feels like they find ways to win, whether it's, you know, the freak black magic type of vibes, or they're just simply sensational when the situation calls for it. So, you know, it's hard to say that, oh, yeah, no, it's just so happened going to run out at this moment in time. I will say this. It's crazy. I mean, like, what are we talking about? Doinks and blocked extra points or game-winning field goals? It just seems insane. But I will say, if there is a situation where that runs dry, they have struggled a little bit on third down this season, one of the bottom third in the NFL. So if there is a situation where the Philadelphia Eagles are just absolutely awesome on third down, that opens the door for them to possibly lose a 1-score game.
As the elder statesman of this group, I remember people used to say the same thing about those 49er teams in the 80s and early 90s, the Cowboys teams as well, and also the Patriots teams. Good teams are going to good. The reason why they're good in these spots, because they know how to win and they're well coached.
They are. And again, I love the Thanos comparison, because that's exactly what they are. They are inevitable. Gentlemen, sit tight. We've got so much more to discuss with you here on the other side. But before we get there, let's take a look at the specs when it comes to this rematch. Of course, we told you at the top of the show, the 9th rematch in Super Bowl history. It is, of course, a rematch from a couple years ago when KC got the win there on a game-winning field goal. And we know the Chiefs are looking to become the first team to win 3 straight Lombardis.